Our next adventure awaits us. We've got the infamous 96 Chevrolet K1500 with the 5.7, and it is currently a crank no start. History goes, it used to only be a crank no start on cold days or cold mornings or whatever, but if the environment would warm up, it would go ahead and fire and eventually progressed to be worse and worse to where it happened to be a crank no start the whole time. It has had a new distributor put in it. That was found to be bad. It has also had a couple other ignition components tried on it, but to no success. I believe it had a coil and a control module swapped around, and that didn't change anything. Uh, all of that to say it should be, based on what I'm told, it's supposed to be a no spark scenario. Or if you put a spark tester on it, when you go to crank, you may get one spark event out of the coil. And then after that spark event, it no longer sparks and continues to be our crank no start. We'll reach in here, grab the key, give her a crank. So don't know how well you can hear, but we've got our crank no start for sure. It is being a 96. We've got the OBD2 connector installed, loud trucks, which hopefully will make life a little bit easier for us, but we don't know. So next thing, keep saying so. Next thing we're just going to do is plug the tool into her and see if she's got any codes, see if we can get any data out of it. I will say overall, the truck looks like it's in pretty good shape for a 96. I think the engine was replaced about a year ago, but everything in here is super clean. The body's clean. The engine looks clean. The interior's pretty well taken care of. You know, it's almost 30 years old, but all in all, it looks like a pretty well maintained truck. So I don't know what we're going to find. Let's get to going on her with the tool and see what pops up. We've got our whopping 3 modules on this old girl. We have crankshaft position sensor, so performance, circuit intermittent. I don't even know if you can really see that well. Airbag, we have DERM incompatibility, SIR indicator circuit failure, defective DERM. I don't really know what DERM stands for. I'll have to look that up, but either way, airbag stuff. But we've got 2 crankshaft codes, which is fairly interesting. And it says since cleared failed, since cleared failed. Let's go ahead, save this. Now we got that saved off. Let's just go ahead and clear these, see if they come back. Clearing codes, reading codes, pass no fault. The powertrain, and those came back. So no codes for the powertrain. Let's give this thing a crank over and reread them afterwards. Let's go crank. Have no cranking. Where's my reread code deal? Oh, fault scan. Boom. We got 2 faults came back in the engine computer. That was taken. We got 0336, 0339, sensor performance, sensor circuit intermittent. I'd say it's as good a place as any to go get started. We will now go to some wiring diagrams, bust the scope out, pin some stuff, and take some measurements. Check through our service info, looked at some wiring diagrams. Service info has a pretty cool step, I thought, for an old car. Basically, we've got our crank sensor here. We've got power coming into the top. We've got ground over here. And we've got our, what calls a 4X, I assume square wave signal coming here. And service info says connect a test light here and see if it lights. Connect a test light here, see if it lights. And then it says, if you got those, put good power and ground to the sensor. It says connect a DVOM or DVM, I guess, to this circuit, and it says crank over, I think to these two, but it says crank over the engine and measure hertz or frequency or duty cycle, and then it gives you a range. So pretty cool, like non-scope scope tests from back in the day. Regardless, we got the scope hooked up. We've just matched A, B, C channels, and I haven't done anything yet, but I am actually, because I got the scope pins back probed in each one of these pins, I'm going to grab the test lot and we'll do a power and ground check with the test lot first. I think it's a good place. Then we'll give her a crank with the scope and see what kind of readings we get there. This is about as good a shop as y'all are going to get. I got jumper leads coming from battery, so I'm going to start with our test lot connected to battery negative lead, and then we're going to make sure that's covered up so we don't arc it. So test lot connected, there's twice. So battery test lot connected to battery negative. We're going on this pink wire on terminal A. A is our red trace. If we, I may not have even turned the key on, I'm not sure. So I have nothing here on the test lot. Let me go make sure that key's turned on. That would probably help. I didn't pay attention. Oh, look at that. The wiring diagram says hot and run and start. Well, it sounds like we need the key on. All right, key is on. Let me come on back under there. Grab our test light again. Go on to the back of pin A. We have test light lights. So we have good power at our sensor. That's always a good start. Now let's go to pin B, which is crank sensor ground. The crank sensor ground, we're going to switch our test lot to battery positive. Carefully lay that aside. Grab our test lot again. We'll touch something else. See if it lights. Alright, so we do have test lot light. When I touch the oil pan, and we want, what did I say? B, terminal B is a purple wire. The middle wire, terminal B, should be our green trace. Let's snake in here with our green. And we do have a test light lit on green. So we got good power and ground at our sensor. That's cool. All right. Well, in that case, we're moving to the scope square wave to see what that trace looks like. Let's go get set up on that screen. We are set up on the scope now. Got channel A, B, C. A is power. B is the ground, and C is signal. So we've got 12 volts coming on the scope at A. We've got ground or next to ground at B, and C is some weird number. Looks like 8.5 volts or something. Let's pull this down and see where we're at. 8.7 volts. I don't really remember what these are supposed to be. Lastly, I'll say also, when I was looking at wiring diagrams, there's 4 connectors on this engine computer, 2 up top, 2 on bottom. I did just undo the latch on this computer so we could move it in case I got to get to them. So I did, oops, can't see nothing. Struggles. So I did just move this computer about like so. Probably should just double check to make sure we still have our issue present. And well, I guess we're going to find out here in a minute anyway. We got the scope on. But I did touch that computer just to see where we might be going. I'm going to restart this trace. Let's go over, give her a crank. And I'd say this is an issue. That should be some sort of square wave. It is not some sort of square wave. It pretty well mimics cranking voltage. Well, again, I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. I don't know if this is a 5-volt square wave or a 12-volt square wave or something in between, but either way, it follows that trace of the cranking signal straight up. So somehow we have 8 volts getting stuck on this dude. I'm gonna blow this up a little bit more. Come on, zoom in. Yeah, that's just a straight like battery voltage 8 volts, which is weird. So you can see our ground offset, kind of, because there's a glare. You can see our offsets for our grounds for the 12 volt signal, 12 volts versus the return signal, and they lay right over top of each other. We have 8 volts stuck on this wire. Next we're going to do is likely unplug our crank sensor and see what this trace looks like. If that 8 volts goes away or stays or changes to something else, that's our next test. So let's hit play, reset our time base because, you know, the scope sucks that way, but whatever. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go unplug that crank sensor, come right back to the screen. Crank sensor is now unplugged. To the best of my ability, we still have the same, well, we might have lost our 12 volts. Everything's 0. That's weird. Let me recheck my connections real quick. No, it's not weird. We should probably have the key on to do this. Let's try this one more time with the key going to the on position. Booyah! We got 12 volts there, ground there, 0 there. So it looks like we have 8 volts coming out of the crank sensor constantly. Let me go double check my connections and make sure this 8 volts, or excuse me, this ground doesn't change to 8 volts. So far, I will tell you, this is sort of looking like a bad crank sensor. With the connector unplugged, I went ahead and took our, whoa, easy. Watch where you guys are going. I went ahead and took our signal wire, as with the connector unplugged, I took the trace C out of the back pin position and went and touched it on the front of the connector, and I had 0 volts. And then when I, re-back pin it and then re-plug that thing back in, it jumps back up. Let's see if Autel fixed their issue. They did fix it, their update. And so this is when, well, you can see this jump up here on channel C is when I plugged it back in and we got that constant 8 volts. Let's make sure it's still our 8.7 or whatever I said it was. Yeah, we're still at 8.7. Let's go and give it one more crank over, see if anything's changed since we plugged in and unplugged. We are in run, we're in crank. To me, that says crank sensor issue. Looks like we still have that same overlay. Come on, zoom in. Yeah, those look like the same overlays as we had before. Just somehow that crank sensor, excuse me, that crank sensor is just passing 8 of those 12 volts through to the signal wire. I'm going to do one more test just to be confident. I'm going to find our blue connector at the PCM. I do want to just pin this and make sure we've got good wire integrity through. More or less assume we do, but it's just a check I'm going to do anyway. So we're going to find this pin 31 on our blue connector with probably channel 4 and see if it looks the same as channel 3 here. PCM is back probed right there. We got her propped up. Bring it back to the scope. In theory, we should see the exact same thing on channel D that we do on channel C. Oh wait, key's got to be on. Duh. Key's on now. There we go. Let's turn. Wait for that screen to reset. Well, we already messed up our time base. I have to write Autel about this. No easy way to zoom back out. Anyway. Oh, that's an odd trace. That says we have 0 volts. Well, let me give this a wiggle. Maybe we don't have her back pinned all the way. And, oh, she went in further that time. Looks like I still got a bad connection, but we got her, I think. I'm just going to check it. It should be 8.7 at that little spike right there. It is. It's 8.7, I guess 7.8 on that little spike. Let's replay this. Get rid of that window. I'm going to angle. Oh, man, I'm making a mess. Got a little prop up. I'm going to pull it out a little bit until I get that little trace to jump. There it is. All right, now we're making good connection. We've got our 8 volts, 8 volts. So it looks like we got good wire integrity. At this point, I got no other choice but to call crank sensor. That we've got constant 8 volts. Let's go ahead and crank this thing real quick, see if anything changes. And I'll key off. It's really just looking like a bad crank sensor. What I'm saying crank sensor, as I continue to say it, we're just gonna move that out of the way. That's our ground. I really do feel like somewhere in our conversation with the customer, the topic of crank sensor came up. I don't recall exactly what it was. If it was tried, maybe one was tried. I'm not sure. The crank sensor down there doesn't look old either, which is interesting. I'm trying to make these scales the same. I want to see if blue and green overlap identically, even though I'm pretty confident they do. I just want to see it. So 8.96, 8.97, they're right over top of each other. Grounds are in the same spot. Yeah, at this point, I got no other choice but to call crank sensor on her. Actually, we'll do one last thing. I'll pull that crank sensor out and I will inspect the wheels or the tone ring or whatever's in that it's picking up on. I'll pull it out, make sure that thing's not loose. I'll bar the engine over, make sure that thing is spinning inside there. If I find something there, I'll bring you along. Otherwise, we're going to have to get a crank sensor coming for. Got the sensor pulled out of there. It looks like kind of like a new sensor. It doesn't look that old. Looked in the little hole and looks like it's just the front of the crankshaft has the tone high and low spots on it. Barred the engine over. All of those seem to be clean, clear, whatever. It's not loose, which, you know, again, looks like part of the crankshaft on this one. I can't remember which one does that. So I don't think our crankshaft is broken by any stretch of the imagination. Looking like a crank sensor. We're going to do one more test just to satisfy some curiosity. Let me spin you. Here we got our crankshaft sensor set up. We've got power and ground jumper tier. We've got channel 4 on our scope setup. Turn those off and zoom back out. Ow! On, well, what just happened? Well, that's cool. Looks like ours. Come on. Why aren't you showing me anything? I have no idea what's happening. I broke my scope. Are we still connected to ground? Yes, we are. Why are we not getting anything here? It looks like my scope broke, so let's close all these applications, reopen it, see if that fixes it. I know if y'all watch my scope video, I talked about this thing being a little buggy from time to time. Here's a great example. Searching for devices. Yeah, apparently it wasn't connected to the VCMI. Now we're getting something. Now that's a weird number. Okay, there it goes. Looks like this thing's sitting at about, oh yeah, we got a different voltage here. So this thing's sitting at 12.8 volts. There is a battery charger on this. That's cool. So now I'm going to try and see what happens when I pass a socket in front of this dude. It does go low and high, but that was very delayed. Do it again. Oh, okay. That's pretty wild. So you saw how fast I was passing it. Again, this is pointing me to a bad crank sensor. That's weird though. I've never seen that happen like that. You saw how fast I passed it in front of the socket, but this thing stayed in the low position for, come on, where is it? 2.81 seconds. So it stayed low when I passed the socket in front of it for 0.81 seconds. Well, I'll tell you right now, the engine spins a lot faster than 2.8 seconds between each tone wheel tooth. Always going to question our scope though. I'm going to, just to make sure, I'm going to turn this off, turn the VCM off. I'm going to restart everything. I'll bring it back once those are restarted. We got to make sure our scope's working right. Back on the oscilloscope, we've got the tablet rebooted. We got the VCMI rebooted. We'll turn these channels off again. We got our trace coming across at our 13 volts. Make sure this is in frame. And so I'll do it this way. So we'll pass the socket in front of it. I wasn't close enough that time, it doesn't look like. Not close enough again. That time I actually touched it. Yeah, that looks like a bad sensor. Let's see if it does the same thing again for our time base. Bring cursor 1 in, cursor 2 in. 2.79 seconds. We got a 2.8 second delay on our crank sensor. I'm going to call, loud cars are driving by. I'm going to call back crank sensor. Let's get a new one in here and see what this looks like. I know the glare's getting pretty bad on here. It's how much I can really do at the moment. I was just messing with this a bit more, and we still have our 2.8 second whatever drop anytime we pass a socket in front of it. But I found something a little different too, and this might explain the intermittent part. I don't know, but if we pass it in, I'm just gonna touch it because it does the same thing. So we touch it, it goes low for our 2-3 seconds. But anytime I touch it, if it detects the next touch, it will spike back up a little bit faster. Well, it was. There we go. So what you're actually seeing here, I don't know how timed it's going to be, but we have, wow, God damn it. An example here where it goes low for a short period of time. The reason I shouldn't say the reason, what's actually happening is when I pass it in front of it again, it shows it as the tone moving away, like the notch moving away and then coming right back down. So if I only do it one time, these are probably, they're not exactly timeline, but it's good enough. If I just pass it once, it goes low for 3.8 and then comes back up. But if I go pass it by one time and it's less than 3.8 and I pass it by again, as I pass it by the sensor again, it goes high and then goes low again. I don't know, I mean, to me that sounds a pretty weird way to do things. So we're still calling a sensor on this. We have everything else for this to work. We're getting constant 8 volts out of this. I don't know why we get 8 volts when we're cranking. Maybe the gap was off a little bit. I'm not 100% sure. This doesn't look like it has too much of an adjustment there. We could bend the arm or whatever. Probably need to get some putty and check the gap. Either way, we're going to put a new sensor in it because we're here, and we'll bring you back with that new sensor installed. We've got some new parts in, and we've got some conflicting service information. So let's go through these little adventures together and see what we come up with. Back to our wiring diagram. This says 4x crank sensor signal. So 4 windows apparently we're expecting on that. If you look at the ignition description operation for this truck, it says it's a 4x thing also. However, when you look at the actual service info for the crank sensor replacement, there's a couple things that we're going to show up. First of all, the air gap between sensor and wheel is preset and not adjustable. The target wheel has 3 slots 60 degrees apart. So now we've got a 3x sensor or signal, tone wheel, whatever, and down here it also says 3x signal. What it does not tell us is what the gap is supposed to be between the tone wheel and our actual sensor itself. The new sensor does come with spacers. We're going to have to actually install this a couple times and measure our gap. Service info doesn't tell me. On this one, I'm used to seeing about 30 thousandths. Luckily, the new sensor comes with some information. And actually, I thought this was interesting. This is going to be one more thing to check, though I don't think this will be an issue, but we'll do our best to push on this crankshaft. But it says, note it may be necessary to add one or two of the included shims. Do not add these shims to low mileage vehicles that are not experiencing the conditions below. Engines that use this crank sensor are experiencing abnormally high amounts of front crank bearing wear. That means the crank actually is moving around too much and is contacting the sensor and whatever. But down here it also says minimum of 30 thousandths air gap, so we'll have to make sure we get that to set properly. Let's swap over all of our test leads from the old sensor to the new one. And once we get these swapped over, we will redo our little socket test. And even if the new sensor, I will say, even if the new sensor does behave the same as the old, which I'd be very surprised to see, that means I'd be learning something new today. Even if that does happen, we don't know. The new sensor comes with adjustment shims, and to make sure we get that 30 thou gap properly. So we still need those, and I didn't see them to be able to order separately. All right, let's turn all these off, see what you can see. We've got our 13 volts or whatever coming across. Where did my socket go? It's over here. And we're going to pass this in front. Let's see if you can see. It looks like the charger just kicked off. Let's pass this in front of it. It actually behaves the same way. That's fascinating. So we may not need a crank sensor if this is the exact same. But I'm wondering if our gap was off previously. It's every time we have the same type of reaction. That's very strange. Well, looks like I learned something new, but we haven't installed this one yet. But we still need those shims to make sure we got the right gap. I guess we'll stick the old one back in and check the gap. Let's do a measurement on that actual time. I really did not expect to see that, so that's fun. Let's pull our cursors in. We got 2.89 seconds for that drop. That's interesting. I did not expect to see that. Well, we still need the shims. May need the shims. We're going to reinstall the old one. We're going to take a measurement with our special tool silly putty stuff. So we got the Loctite Fun Tack. We're going to stick it on there and then stick this in there and see what our actual gap is. Perhaps we have a bad gap, and that might be an issue. I don't know why we're getting 8 volts on this old sensor, though. That was still very odd to me. Either way, that's our next step. Got the old sensor here, still haven't stuck in the new one, so we will stick this on here, like so, mash that in, and then once we got confidence that that's stuck, that's more than 30 thousandths, we'll take some oil and we'll rub it on the top so it doesn't stick to the actual tone wheel itself. We'll stick it in there, mount it, and then pull it back out and measure that gap. We have got the old sensor installed. We bolted it down and then pulled it back out. I don't know if you can actually see, but there is an impression, an indentation on the edge of that sticky tack where the high point of our tone wheel was. So I've made sure the engine was barred over to where the high point was sticking up or sticking in the hole. And then we're going to zero this and apparently lose all our papers and do our best to try and stick the end of this in here to the point where we can actually go through. So using a little tab on the end, and then I'll run that down until it makes contact with the actual sensor part, and then I'll push down on it until the rest of it becomes even with the rest of the sticky tack. Close. I think we're about there. Can't tell. We're super close. I think we made contact with the rest of the sticky tack. Yeah, I can barely see the indentation. That says 40 thousandths though. So we've got too big of an air gap here. 40 thousandths. Let me double check this. I got my safety glasses on. I'm gonna pull these off real quick so I can stay real close. But that, I'm pretty confident. And we might be able to go a smidge more. Alright, that's about it. Either way, it says 37 thousandths. Perhaps we have too big of a gap here. That is a key point. That may not work. But we still have that 8 volts coming out of this, and that doesn't make any sense. Even if we have, well, here actually, let's do this. Let's get our scope going again. Let's roll this sticky tack stuff, or leave it on there. Roll the socket past it. We're gonna have to switch our leads back over. I wonder if this will pass through that sticky tack. I don't think it would block the signal, but we will give that a try. I want to see if it will read. So my point as I'm getting at now is, if we're 37 thousandths away from that tone wheel, and I pass this socket around that tip now, because the sticky tack is compressed to 37 thousandths, I won't be able to get the socket closer to than 37 thousandths to the sensor. And so, as long as I don't gouge the sticky tack, we should get if I just barely touch it, we should still get the same signal. And it does, so that's weird. So it drops, and I just barely touch, and we're at 37 thousandths, so it's reading it. I just roll it past. Yep, it's reading it at 37 thousandths. That's pretty odd. I'll give you that. At this point, that's very odd behavior, I have to say. Here's what we got going. Still working with the old sensor. I wrote old on it so I wouldn't mix them up. I took this bracket and I bent it so that when we tighten it down, it would make sure the sensor is pushed as far in as it'll go. I also made sure that the surface it mounts in is actually a plastic deal, but I made sure it was clear of, contaminants. I gave it a little, set like a Scotch-Brite pad, and I just kind of, with my fingers, run across it. And now I'm going to do this same measurement again after we clean that off and after we bent this bracket and remounted it. I'll get my safety glasses off so I can see what's up here. And we're going to do the same test. I think it looks a little bit thinner in our sticky tack. 42 thousandths. That's what it says now. We're still over 10 thousandths off. I don't think we should be that far off. Maybe 35 thousandths. We're gonna use this. I'm gonna bend this again, and we're gonna use the old sensor. We're gonna recapture our data and see if anything's changed with the bent bracket. The old sensor is installed, and we are back to our 8 volts. I'm wondering if when that thing is pressed in there, if it's actually sort of flexing the sensor, and that's what's causing our issue with this sensor. I don't know why we have 8 volts here. 8 volts doesn't make any sense. When we hook everything up with the bench setup, we get 12 to 0, not 8. This 8 number is very odd to me. We have good ground, good power. I'm going to go ahead and crank it over and see if it behaves the same. I assume it will. Maybe it won't. Let's pause that and see what in the world just happened. Oh boy. That's kind of weird. We have a sensor gap issue. I guess that's what's wrong with it. Those square waves, those are 8 to 0 square waves. We did not install our new sensor. Here's a new one. The seal's clean and everything. Haven't installed it. That's bizarre. Well, I guess that's going to be our issue. We got too big of a gap on our crank sensor. Today is Saturday and it's in the afternoon. All the dealers are closed. Usually I look for OEM parts. I really didn't even think that this thing would have an OEM part, let alone dealers aren't open right now. At least our part guy isn't open right now. Well, I'll be dipped. I think we found our issue. Our gap is wrong. I'm gonna have to figure out a way now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and shave down. Well, let me flip you so you can see me. We got the greatest glares and everything else. If this is our issue, which it obviously appears to be, we've got to figure out a way to take 7 to, well, I'll say 12 thousandths out of that material where the crankshaft sensor mounts in, or of the sensor housing itself. I don't really know how I'm going to do that. I guess we could just, I don't know what it'll be. The easiest to measure will probably be on the sensor itself. So we got the sensor, new one that we haven't installed. This ridge here is plastic. Perhaps I'll just start shaving down this ridge here, and we'll keep doing our depth checks until we get 30 thousandths. But it just started. Let's go ahead and fire it up one more time. I probably can't see nothing, but let's just fire it up one more time and make sure she actually is still going to run. Yeah. We have a gap issue on our sensor. Well, hot damn, we almost made... You can't see me. Come on, why can't you see me? We legit almost made a bad call. I still don't understand this 8-volt deal. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it. I don't know. We must have something in the engine control module circuit for the signal circuit that actually pulls that down a little bit. So can you see where this wire actually goes in the engine control? There has to be a resistor there that pulls it down to 8 volts. That's the only thing that makes sense. I really didn't expect to see that part, because if they're both 12 on the bench, 8 when we install it, PCM's got to be pulling that down. But we have our clean square wave. I about made a bad call. That was fun. I'm going to figure out some sort of way to get this sensor gap changed. We'll install this old one, and I think that's probably going to be it. We'll call it a day after we do that. We'll let it run for a whole while, but I'm going to figure out how to shave that down and get our actual gap right. Here is where we are. So we have the old sensor, kind of rubbed off, but it says old on it. We're done with the new one. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but this surface right here, where it mounts to the actual engine itself, this little piece of plastic here was previously 85 thousandths thick. It is now not perfect, but it is between 68 to 70 thousandths. So we have shaved 15 to 17 thousandths of an inch off of this mating surface. That should put us really close to 30 thousandths once installed. We'll get our new little depth putty deal, stick it back in, mount it, pull it back out, and we'll do that measurement next. We have installed and uninstalled our old sensor with the new machining. Make sure this thing zeroes out. We're zeroed. Take it up to 65. I'll just turn the lights on, it'll be easier to see. We're going to work it down through the putty to the bottom. And it's hard to tell. Let me open up that gap a little bit bigger, make sure. So I got that end piece, that end little pin, all the way down to solid. Move it down slowly till the air gap disappears. Just slowly, barely. Trying to be perfect with her. That's as close as it's going to be. What is our number? 35 thousandths. Can you see that? 35 thousandths. Looks like we may need to take just a little bit more of it off. We're gonna do that. We're gonna shave just a little bit more of it off, and then come back. This will probably be our last go at it. I took approximately another 5 thousandths out of the little ring. Now we're going to take our safety glasses off again because they're not super clear. Trying to be accurate with her. All right, put it right in the middle. Wedge her down. Slowly bringing down the sides. Oh, buddy, is that it? That's as good as she's gonna get. Hold on, I don't think it penetrated all the way in the middle. So we'll make sure she penetrates all the way in the middle with our little tab. Now we will slide down the rest of the caliper till she about touches. That's about as close as she's gonna get. What are we at? Where are you at? 25 thou. The sensor is gonna go back in, gonna mount her up and see if she fires. Our sensor is plugged back in, mounted. We still have the scope leads hooked up. Key is off. I think this thing's connected. Let's hit play. I'm gonna have to reset our time base because we were messing with it. I can't see because there's a glare. And then everything is 0 because we have the key off. So let's go ahead and turn the key on. Make sure we got good connection. We should have 12 volts and we should have our about 8 volts. We do. Let's go ahead and give her a crank. She should fire. Boom. That's a fix. Let's go ahead and stop this, zoom in, make sure it looks the same as it did last time. Heck yeah. That's a fix. We're going to move these a little bit, and I'm going to take a screenshot for later reference. Now, one thing else we want to do, though, is go and see if our codes have cleared out for our crank sensor. Let's do history, the Chevy. I think you can still see what I'm doing, right? Of course not. There's a huge glare. Let me move you. Maybe this will be easier. I don't really know. Can you see? It's going to have to be as good as it's going to get. We're doing a fault scan. We got 2 in the engine controller. Should still have those same crank sensor codes, I assume. We do 336, 339. Let's erase those. Quick erase. Clearing codes. And it's rereading. Pass no fault. Clearing. Alright, so still have the airbag codes, but powertrain's cleared. Let's go ahead and refire this again. While it's running, let's recheck. Fault scan. Boom! Pass, no fault. We got a fix. Yeah. Last thing I was going to do on it was a crank relearn, just in case, because I think that sensor was replaced before. But I don't see anything in here. We had active tests. We don't have anything for crank special function. I don't see anything for crank sensor. But yeah, I think she's ready to rock and roll. Closing thoughts on this 96 Chevy. I was this close to making the wrong call. Tell me, because I ordered the sensor, but I never put it in. Did I make the wrong call? I don't know. I guess you can let me know in the comments. But we got her running. She's running well. She's starting every time. That gap has just got to be perfect. This is what happens, and we know this. This is what happens when we get aftermarket products. The stuff just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Definitely some missing information, missing knowledge on my part. I had no idea that if you just run some sort of, grounding signal piece of metal across the sensor, that it'll hold itself low for a while. That's new information to me. I had no clue about that. Maybe I'm a newbie, whatever. It is what it is, but learn every day. It never stops, like never stops learning. But at the end of the day, we really didn't put that, truthfully, did not put that new sensor in. And we did use it as a bench setup. I'll say if I didn't have that new sensor to use as a bench setup, man, it'd have been tough. It'd have been tough for me to make the right call, I think. Moving forward, adjust the process. Anytime we see something like this in the future, I didn't think about that 12 volt to 8 volt drop. The PCM's just pulling that one wire down. I didn't consider that being, some sort of integrity circuit integrity check that we now know happens. Well, I read the description, and small details like this is why I'm, such a nerd. I actually go through and read the description and operation of these systems, because sometimes there's just little nuggets in there. No matter how much we know, there's always these little nuggets, for me anyway, I should say, my opinion, my experience. There's always little nuggets in there that just really help. I didn't see anything in there about the PCM pulling it down a little bit, how it's an 8 to 0 square wave. Suppose I could have got on Google and just searched for known good waveforms. That probably would have led me to the same place. Either way, it is what it is. Those are my thoughts. Truck's fixed with the old sensor. And I think we mentioned, it looks like that sensor may have been replaced. I think it may have been. But new process from now moving forward is anytime we have this scenario, before we do anything else, we're going to check that gap between the two. All I use is sticky tack. I got that from the Dollar General or whatever. You just cut a little small square, stick it on the end, mash it down good with your thumb. And then once that's on there, just take a little dab of oil and put a little oil on top of it. So that way, when it goes in to the actual tone wheel and presses into the tone wheel, that oil will keep it from sticking to the tone wheel and obviously causing other problems trying to get sticky tack out. I think they make some weird compound, but sticky tack works just the same as far as I can tell. That's all I got for you in this one. Hope this was helpful. Maybe try to find OEM parts in the future. I don't know if they make them for 28-year-old trucks. I didn't even check. Parts store dealer's not open for another 2 days. She's running today, and that's what we got going. I will catch y'all in the next one.